and everything, because
What's that?
this is social media depression, because whereas everyone's looking at their feed and they're comparing their lives to other people, their highlights of other people's lives.
Wow.
And there's actually less life satisfaction, more sadness, depression, and stuff like that, because everyone's is comparing themselves to.
Wow, that's a
what they're
thing.
posting, and it's a challenge.
It literally is a point now where I think we have created tools that are ripping apart the social fabric of how society works. That is truly where we are. And I would encourage all of you, as the future leaders of the world, to really internalize how important this is. If you feed the beast, that beast will destroy you.
Today is an era of addiction. The use of social media and smartphones has revolutionized the way we live. And with smartphones now, you can literally use it anywhere. Social media and the highlight reel allows us to continuously compare ourselves to others, and over recent years, more and more research is beginning to back it up. The aim of this project isn't to dismiss social media's role, but it is to open your eyes to the negatives it can have. And what seems to be the problem is, social media is, well, everywhere. This is Sam, a student at Coventry University. He's been an active user of social media platforms for years and has been struggling with the negative effects of social media. Like so many people, Sam has started to take action, but finds it difficult to remove what seems vital out of his life.
Probably say I was about 13 years old when social media became prominent in my daily routine. I would check Twitter, check Instagram. And this was probably a time when these apps were like quite early in their development stage, so they didn't really know which way they were heading at that point. And I was excited to be part of that time. And I really started to find that the negative effects of these apps were starting almost immediately. I noticed a change in myself. I was distancing myself from friends, from family, and I was almost quite a family-orientated person. That was like weird for me at the time.
So, does spending more time on social media have an effect on the time spent with friends and family? Well, a study in The Telegraph learnt children are spending more time on their smartphones than talking to their parents or carers. And a study in the Daily Mail says Brits are spending more than double the time on social media than time with friends and family, harming mental health. Research also shows children are spending more than 13 hours a week on their smartphones, compared to only 12 conversing with their parents. And according to research done by University College London, girls are twice as likely to show signs of depressive symptoms linked to social media use compared to boys. So why is this important? People nowadays are getting social media at younger ages, exposing them to the negative effects sooner. Research shows us heavy use of social media does in fact increase depressive symptoms.
So the paper I'm writing right now is about, again, time spent on social media and suicide risk over time. And that one found some interesting things. So all the findings are for girls. And it said if you start at really high levels in early adolescence and then increase rapidly over like a 10-year period of time, your risk of suicide is greatest in emerging adulthood, which is kind of the age you're looking at right there. So the study called Flourishing Families. And then basically we just looked at time spent using a variety of different media devices, and then anxiety and depression every single year for 8 years. And then we're able to statistically model it to figure out changes in social media time. Does it predict changes in depression and anxiety? And I hypothesized that it would, but it did not, right? And so what I got from that is that, you can take any two given people, let's say take you and me, you both spend an hour on social media, and you could have a fantastic time where you're connecting with people and, you feel great about yourself afterwards. And I could spend the same hour and have a miserable time where I'm feeling left out and I'm maybe cyberbullied or whatever, right? So the context seems to matter, I think, more than sheer amount of time.
The thing with social media research is there's a lot of data on both sides. So there are benefits and there are drawbacks, and there's no real easy answer, at least in my view, to whether social media is good or bad. I think it's a lot more complicated than that.
Likes and followers have become an important part of life for so many people. This is because research has shown us they provide many psychological benefits. This all began on the 9th of February 2009, when Facebook created the like button. However, ironically, initial plans didn't go well, and Mark Zuckerberg was concerned the like button would overshadow the share and comment features.
Forbes taking a break from Facebook may boost mental health. A study finding that after a week of quitting Facebook, people's mental health considerably improved.
But now, the like and follow button have become important in today's culture. They're a way of being congratulated, or a way of getting positive feedback. And either way, they provide a psychological high for so many people.
If I post a picture where I think I look nice and then I don't get as many likes as I normally get, or what I see my friends getting, kind of makes me feel like I'm not as good as them, I guess. On followers as well, you just compare yourself to other people online and you see how many people other people are following and how many people are following you, and then it's a comparison that you can see on the page.
Not everyone can be rich and famous, not everyone can be successful on social media, and it doesn't mean that I'm less of a person than someone who maybe has racked up a few 100,000 followers, maybe 1 million followers. It still means that I am who I am. I'm still Sam. I'm still achieving my goals that I've set up for myself in life.
The other thing that can be kind of addictive, I would say, or at least rewarding, is getting positive feedback from others on your posts. So especially for younger people like teenagers, but also for young adults, it's very reinforcing and rewarding to see that people like what you're posting. So if you post a picture and you get a ton of likes, that feels really good. And for some people, they'll post something and then they'll keep kind of obsessively checking to see if they got more likes and comments and worried whether they got enough. So that can be kind of addictive in a way for people too.
Engagement with social media and our cell phones releases a chemical called dopamine. That's why when you get a text, it feels good. It's why we count the likes. It's why we go back 10 times to see if my Instagram is growing slower. Did I do something wrong? Do they not like me anymore, right? Because we know when you get a hit of dopamine, which feels good. It's why we like it. It's why we keep going back to it. Dopamine is the exact same chemical that makes us feel good when we smoke, when we drink, and when we gamble. In other words, it's highly, highly addictive.
Dopamine is a neurotransmitter made in the brain. It acts as a chemical messenger between neurons and is released when the brain is expecting a reward. For example, a certain activity of pleasure such as food, sex or shopping, or just about anything else you enjoy.
When we were making the like button, our entire motivation was, can we spread positivity and love in the world? The idea that fast forward to today and teens would be getting depressed when they don't have enough likes, or that it could be leading to political polarization, was nowhere on our radar.
It definitely has qualities, I think, that can make it feel addictive. It's pretty controversial whether social media addiction is really a real phenomenon or not, but definitely people experience signs of problematic social media use that are really similar to addiction. It might be a form of behavioral addiction, such as having trouble cutting down on social media use, using it at the expense of other obligations like social obligations, things like that. Yeah, and there are features of the platforms that make them kind of addictive, like the sort of endless scrolling. So it's really hard for people to break out of that. We have to opt out of using social media. And some people, like it sounds like you're pretty good at this, where you can kind of close out of it. If it's driving you crazy, you can be done with it. Some people have a really hard time disengaging, even if they know that it's having negative effects on their mental health.
What's interesting is that social media is kind of designed in a way to be addictive. Like the never-ending scroll, swiping down, things like that are absolutely designed to capture your attention, to keep you hooked. And it works phenomenally well.
We deal with negative emotions in a lot of different ways. There's healthy ways to do it, and there's not healthy ways to do it. And I think that social media, it seems like it's kind of this innocuous thing, right? I'm not overeating, I'm not doing drugs, I'm not getting drunk on the weekends or every night even. And it's something that people have in their pockets, just easy, constant access to. So I think that the problem is, because it's so easy to use, that people don't necessarily realize that they're using it in a way that may not be healthy.
They can't live without it. They still come back online after a while. And even sometimes they say, "Oh, I'm coming offline now because I've had some really negative interactions," and then a day later they're back on it. So it's kind of like they can't function without it.
Because I believe it comes from education. And I'm not talking about sitting in the classroom type education. I'm just talking about raising awareness. They track all your data. They track all your likes. They sell you those products because that's what you've liked and that's who you follow. So it's raising awareness for all users about how these systems work.
Literacy, media literacy. It's understanding what media is and what influence it has. It's also having a critical, looking at media from a critical point of view. So being able to analyze it and not take everything for face value. Social media literacy, it's understanding why people use it, what effects it has, what you can accomplish, what you can't accomplish in social media. So just understanding the benefits and the disadvantages of using it. And our minds process lots of different information, right? Billions and billions and billions of bits of information every day. And a lot of time we kind of process things automatically. So that's the scroll factor, right? We're just scrolling and not really thinking about what we're doing. Well, media literacy will step into that process of scrolling and just reviewing things automatically and allow us to critically evaluate what we're doing with the media.
One of the biggest problems with the highlight reel, comparing yourself to others.
The thing about comparison is that social comparison theory, and I think, as humans we do compare ourselves a lot with other people, and then it does damage your self-esteem.
The social comparison theory was first proposed in 1954 by psychologist Leon Festinger. He suggested that people have an innate drive to evaluate themselves, often in comparison to others. The social comparison process involves people coming to know themselves by evaluating their own attitudes, abilities, and traits in comparison with others. All around the world, people make all kinds of judgments about themselves, and one of the key ways that we do this is through social comparison, or analysing ourselves in relation to others on social media. This could be comparing a job position with someone at your work, how much money someone earns, materialistic things like what car they drive, or even comparing where they live. This is what he called upward social comparison. This takes place when we compare ourselves with those who we believe are better than us. These upward comparisons often focus on the desire to improve our current status or level of ability. Examples such as comparing ourselves to people in loving relationships, or people who are fitter and in better shape. Now downward social comparison. This takes place when we compare ourselves to others who we think are worse off than us. The person gets satisfaction by believing they are better off than someone else. Examples like being more intelligent, or getting a better grade on a math test, or being on an exotic holiday when everyone else is stuck at work. We're able to see these things daily because of one thing: social media. Social media has allowed us to compare ourselves with anyone and everyone. With a tap and a scroll, we're able to see everyone, which can affect our mood instantly.
We compare, that's what we do, right, on a very, very core level. In terms of emerging adulthood, I think social comparisons is a really big problem there. And there's been some research on it, I think more with adolescents, but just the idea of everyone is doing amazing and I'm not, right? Where everyone looks like they've got their crap together and I don't. And so this idea you're constantly comparing yourself with others, whether it's physical attractiveness or social environment or jobs or school or whatever.
Social media. But I remember being a teenager, maybe in my early 20s as well, and you'd kind of see all your mates posting, everyone's posting the glamorous side of their life and giving you this kind of like false narrative of what their life looks like. But you just take that at face value and then you compare your own life to that. And I think I definitely did that. And I used to be anxious that I wasn't where I wanted to be in life. And some of my friends looked like they were already there. But in reality, it was all just a facade. So I'd say Facebook, Instagram, those channels where you really present this polished version of yourself. For years, as I started to talk more honestly, it kind of led to this little movement around the people I was with who all started to do the same. And now there's this really nice, active mental health community across social media.
Right. So I think that's romantic relationships, I think, is a huge thing.
Another problem with social media is how it portrays perfection in relationships. This is so damaging for young couples like me and my girlfriend, as it makes us question our whole relationship and doubt how loving it is, and if we're not doing these exploring and going on mad holidays, and it can put a lot of strain on a young couple.
On the 9th of September 2020, Netflix released a documentary, The Social Dilemma, a documentary on the people who created these social media platforms, talking about the effect social networks have on human behavior.
I was the co-inventor of the Facebook like button. I was the president of Pinterest,
Google, Twitter, Instagram.
There were meaningful changes happening around the world because of these platforms. I think we were naive about the flip side of that coin.
And all of these social networks have one thing in common: algorithms.
Decide here, basically, that's how it works, right? Say you post a picture on Instagram. Basically, Instagram takes a picture and it will show it to like a small amount of people, like 10% of your following, not even that, yeah? And then, depending on whether that small percentage of your following engages with it and how they engage with it, depends on whether they'll show it to anyone else. So if you post a picture and they show it to 100 people and only 2 of them people like it, no one else is seeing that picture. Because Instagram's like, oh, no one likes this, so they're not going to show it to anyone.
If we take a look at Instagram's age demographics, 18 to 24-year-olds dominate on Instagram, with 28% of global active Instagram users being between those ages. If we compare that to Snapchat and Twitter, 18 to 24-year-olds also hold the largest age demographic on Snapchat, unlike Twitter, which is being predominantly used by 25 to 34-year-olds. Mobile phones have changed the world, for better or for worse, and since the introduction of smartphones and mobile data, we are now able to use our phones everywhere. We have the world in our pockets, and as smartphones and technology have improved, so has the daily time spent on social media by mobile users, which then correlates to a rise in depression. The Journal of Abnormal Psychology finds younger people's mental distress, depression, and suicidal thoughts have all risen significantly in the past decade.
The world has moved online, and if you haven't moved online with it, then you're left, with certain difficulties. And I think social media has become a real key component of that, especially for younger people. If you haven't got a smartphone, how can you be part of that social event?
There's some evidence that it can lead to loneliness and depressive symptoms, lower satisfaction with life.
I think Instagram is one of the worst offenders for that kind of highlight reel idea that you're talking about, because of course people will take 100 photographs and post the very best one of those 100 photographs on Instagram. And of course what you get is a very biased idea about what somebody's life is like from Instagram. If you are able to see something in a kind of rational way, then you are more protected. Your mental health is more protected. But the trouble is, it's that kind of continuous exposure to that kind of thing starts to make you believe that possibly everybody's life is better than yours.
I think most people would expect or assume that the responsibility mostly sits with the platforms, being it's their platforms to cut these profit-making businesses, international businesses making billions of dollars in ad revenue and everything else, that they are ultimately responsible for the safety of their platform, and safety being, the well-being, mental well-being of their users, amongst many other things. But there's also a role that the government can play in terms of with support and cooperation of these platforms to educate young users, from a very early age. And these children now growing up in an age where they've never known anything but having an always-on high-speed internet connection with a device in their hand or several devices that are internet-enabled. I think there is a role for government in the educational part, and also there's a role for government in making sure it sets rules and puts in place regulation that forces these platforms to behave and act in a responsible way. But it does need both the platforms and government to work in somewhat together and cooperatively.
Social media platforms, the leadership of a few, at least, they have expressed publicly some concern about the negative effects that their platforms can have. Instagram has taken some action, such as they did a pilot test in a few countries, and I don't know how it worked out, but they were hiding the number of likes that other people's posts got, and that was supposed to help decrease the negative effects on people's own self-views. If they see someone else's post got like 1,000 likes and theirs only got a few. So they've taken kind of little actions here and there.
The Prime Minister has announced the most drastic limits to our lives that the UK has ever seen in living memory.
I am officially declaring a national emergency.
The Italian government tonight put the entire country on lockdown. Europe's open borders are closing.
From this evening, I must give the British people a very simple instruction. You must stay at home.
However, despite its negatives, all things that we must eradicate, it is important to remember the importance social media can have, especially in a year like this one.
So it can definitely cause poor mental health, but also there is a flip side. There are positives associated with it, and I think it's about educating young people about the safe use of social media and actually how to respond when they see things online.
Also, social media has been an incredibly positive and powerful tool during the lockdown, and that goes back to the really, really massive benefits social media can have, because that's kept families together and that's kept social groups together. Can you imagine lockdown without social media? It would have been horrendous.
Some people find it valuable that they could share their own experiences, and then seeing that someone else found that valuable. So there was almost like a sense of community, right? Venting. So few people said they like to go out and just, release all the pain and complain, and that would be enough. Yeah. And not being judged, I guess.
In a year of unprecedented events, social media has played a hugely important part in staying connected to friends and family, allowing you to share special occasions with loved ones, allowing you to work from home and remain safe, and allowing hugely important movements to take place all over the globe, enforcing much needed change in the world.
We just have to find new ways of working, and it'll be fine.
Like this, you wouldn't be able to do this. Your dissertation would be annihilated because you couldn't do interviews without these platforms in place.
So I guess it has made a crazy year, somewhat.